Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is pre-match build-up show time. The international break is finally over and we are back with some proper Premier League football this weekend as Liverpool take on Crystal Palace in the early kickoff. An early kickoff which Jurgen Klopp has said it all about in the past, about how much he hates it. He refers to it as breakfast time. He thinks that it's far too early to play a football match. And when you look at Liverpool's record in 12:30s, it kind of stacks up in Jurgen Klopp's favour on that. We've played 13 games kicking off before 1 o'clock at the weekend since Jurgen Klopp arrived at the club. In that time, we've only won 4 of those games, and I think we've actually lost around about 6. I read this in the Liverpool Echo, and obviously recently we had the game against Man City, another 12:30, also after an international break, where we lost 5-0 at the Etihad. So it does look like Liverpool have a little bit of a problem at kicking off at this time. Obviously, the international break doesn't really help players coming back into training a little bit later than you would have liked in terms of preparations for a Premier League match. But it is still one of those games that Liverpool just absolutely have to win. You know, we're in a position now where we're in the top 4. We've pretty much consolidated our position in those Champions League qualification spots. And as long as, you know, we don't have any major clangers between now and the end of the season, Liverpool should see themselves through for Champions League qualification absolutely fine. I mean, we can probably afford to have 1 or 2 draws here and there. Obviously, the game against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, penultimate game of the season. Ideally, we'd want that to be a dead rubber. We wouldn't want that to be one where Chelsea force themselves back into contention for Champions League qualification. But like I said, a couple of draws here and there should be fine. But really, these are the games that we need to just be winning with the absolute minimum amount of fuss so we can focus on bigger things like the Champions League games against Man City, of which there is one in midweek after this match as well. So team news going into this game, obviously with the international break, one of the biggest stories that came out if you are a Liverpool supporter was the fact that Joe Gomez got injured about 6 or 7 minutes into the first England game. You know, completely pointless game. No need to play him. No need to risk injury. But he plays, he gets injured, and Liverpool are the ones who get absolutely shafted, as usual, by the international break. As of yet, we still don't know how long it's going to be that Joe Gomez is going to be out for. You know, the prognosis suggests it may even be all the way up until the end of April, which is a concern for Liverpool because, like I said, we want to be winning games between now and the end of the season pretty much, you know, week in, week out. And without Joe Gomez, that is going to be a little bit more difficult. It's a lot of pressure on Trent Alexander-Arnold. But until the swelling goes down on the injury, we don't know for sure how long it's going to be that Joe Gomez is out. But as far as we know, he's absolutely not going to be playing in this weekend's game. However, we've got a little bit of a boost because Nathaniel Clyne has been training all the way through the international break. Obviously, didn't go away on international duty, stayed at Melwood, and he's been in and out of that training ground every single day, you know, building up his fitness, hopefully getting close to a position where he can start playing games for Liverpool. So a possible that we might see him either this weekend or over the coming midweeks and weekends. Jurgen Klopp trying to bring him back up to fitness to compensate for the fact that we may not have Joe Gomez until the very end of the season. So yeah, that is a positive for Liverpool. Elsewhere, Andrew Robertson had a little bit of a knock for Scotland. You know, it doesn't look like anything serious. He reported for training as usual for today. All of Liverpool's players who are on international duty came back into first team training this morning, which is a big thumbs up. So Andrew Robertson back in training should be fine, but possibly, you know, is that not going to have an effect on him? We'll probably see closer to the time. It could be one where he gets a little bit of a late fitness test closer to the match. Elsewhere with fitness news, Roberto Firmino and Mohamed Salah both did not play in their second internationals of the international break, which is, of course, a big boost for Liverpool. You know, we've always had problems in the past with bringing Firmino and Coutinho when he was at the club back from Brazilian international duty. Mo Salah as well could have been a problem coming back from playing for Egypt. Fortunately as well, they seem to have rather sensibly kept all the friendlies in Europe, which I think is quite a good move because, you know, a lot of the big players are centred in and around Europe, even if it's a South American national team or an Egyptian or like an African national team or something like that. So I think that is a positive as well. It's quite a sensible move, especially at this crunch stage of the season. So it cuts down on those flight times. And like I said, Firmino Firmino and Salah both did not play in the second international, so they should be absolutely ripe and ready to take on Crystal Palace. Sadio Mane did play for Senegal. I think he got subbed off with about 5 minutes to go or something like that, but I reckon, you know, he should hopefully be fine. And finally, Emre Can, few question marks over him still. It seemed like he might have picked up an injury on international duty. He's got this back problem which has still been plaguing him for a while now, so it's a bit up in the air whether or not we'll see Emre Can, so I'll come to that when I tell you how I think Liverpool are going to line up. And starting off with that, I think we're going to go with Loris Karius in goal. You know, just no questions around that anymore. Simon Mignolet got 90 minutes for Belgium in the international break, but he is nowhere near as good as Loris Karius at the moment for Liverpool. So Karius, he's the number one. He stays in there. And then the back four, I think you're going Alexander-Arnold at right back, possibly bringing on Nathaniel Clyne with about half an hour to go or something like that. You know, slightly, like I said, putting a rush on his comeback from injury so that he's available as cover for Alexander-Arnold while Gomez is gone, because, you know, those games against Man City, especially the away leg in a week and a half's time, you worry that Trent Alexander-Arnold might get exposed in those kind of games. So I think Nathaniel Clyne might come on a bit later, but given that he hasn't got enough match fitness, I think you still go with Alexander-Arnold starting in that right back spot. And then the centre-back pairing, I think you go with Matip and Van Dijk. There's question marks over, you know, the never-ending Matip versus Lovren question as to who's going to partner Van Dijk. This game could potentially suit Dejan Lovren a little bit better, you know, coming up against Christian Benteke. He likes that physical battle. Obviously, it didn't work up against Lukaku. He was a little bit too physical, a little bit too aggressive, and Lukaku played to that and exploited that to maximum effect in the game against Man United. But, you know, Benteke, nowhere near as good as Romelu Lukaku. So there's a shout for Dejan Lovren there. Obviously, I don't think you want Lovren in the game against Man City in the Champions League. I think you absolutely do want Joel Matip for that game. But I just think, you know, Lovren feels like he's burned his bridges with Liverpool a bit too much this time. You know, there's always the sort of endless cycle of renewal and then death and then renewal and then death of Dejan Lovren's Liverpool career. You know, it goes round and round in circles. He always seems to redeem himself and then drops a clanger like he did at Old Trafford or like he did at Wembley earlier on in the season. I just feel like this time, you know, I became so invested in the Dejan Lovren revolution. I really felt like he was coming on, and I really felt like having Van Dijk next to him was going to get the best out of Dejan Lovren. And maybe this kind of game it's all right. Maybe as long as it's not up against a big opponent like Man United, he might be okay. But I don't want to see him risk anymore, because he's just got on my nerves with how much I got behind him, how much I believed in him, and he still let us all down. So I think in the long run, what Liverpool really need is a player like Dejan Lovren, but just a bit less thick, without wanting to be too mean to Lovren. But yeah, I think Matip and Lovren are your centre-back pairing for this game. And then Andrew Robertson should be fine to play this game. Obviously, if he isn't, I'll have no problems with Moreno coming in for this game at the weekend. But I reckon Robertson should be fine to start this match. So then the midfield. Like I said, Emre Can, a little bit up in the air as to whether he's going to be available for this game. I think with the big games coming up against Man City and the Merseyside derby next weekend as well, I think you don't risk Emre Can too much for this game. I think the midfield's going to be Henderson at the base, and then Milner sort of operating as a partner in a defensive way, but also able to get forward as well, kind of what Emre Can has been doing next to Jordan Henderson over the past few games. And then in the more attacking role, you have Oxlade-Chamberlain to the other side of Jordan Henderson. I think you do bring Emre Can on with maybe half an hour to go, like with Nathaniel Clyne, because you want him to be fit and match sharp for those games against Man City. But I think if you play him from the start, you're sort of asking for trouble in a way, and I think it makes sense to kind of gauge where the game's going and work out whether or not it's worth throwing in Emre Can for about half an hour just to ensure that he keeps up that match fitness. So I think Henderson, Ox and Milner in the midfield, and then the front three, no players being rested here. Between now and the end of the season, I think Liverpool should absolutely play the same front three in every single game because it is brilliant. Salah, Firmino and Mane. So taking a look at Crystal Palace then, I went back and looked at a couple of their previous games on Match of the Day to see how they've been getting on recently, and to be honest, they're not all that. They're not all that. You know, they're a relegation struggling team and they play like one, to be honest. I mean, the key game to watch was their one against Chelsea a couple of weeks ago before they played against Huddersfield. They lost that game 2-1. To be honest, the scoreline really flattered them. Like, I mean, I know they got a few chances in the second half. They tried to get back into it once they were 2-0 down, but the amount of chances that they were giving away, it could have been a cricket score. You know, Chelsea had a lot of brilliant chances that hit the post or were deflected wide or just about saved and stuff like that. So, you know, Crystal Palace just not that brilliant. And I think, you know, you could make a case for them potentially parking the bus for this game because obviously, you know, after the win against Huddersfield, those are the games that they really need to be getting 3 points in. They can kind of afford to maybe just scrape a point in this game and try and pick up wins elsewhere in the fight for relegation. But they just don't strike me as a team that are very good, in all honesty. And they strike me as the kind of team that someone like Liverpool on their day could absolutely tear to shreds. And obviously the big danger man for Crystal Palace, the one we do have to watch out for, is Wilfried Zaha. He is their talisman. He is their only top class player, potentially their only player really worthy of keeping them in the Premier League. He showed what he was all about in the latter stage of the game against Chelsea and the game against Huddersfield as well. You know, he's been causing problems. He comes down Trent Alexander-Arnold's side as well. He's on the left flank for Crystal Palace, on Liverpool's right-hand side. So that is a big test for Trent, especially away from home. You know, we don't want a repeat of the Manchester United performance. We don't want a repeat of what happened with Rashford, where he was showing him inside too much, giving him way too much space, and just getting turned and made to look like a bit of a muppet. So hopefully Trent Alexander-Arnold has learnt from that Old Trafford experience. This is actually a fantastic opportunity for him to show that early on and prove to the manager that he's not going to make those mistakes again. But yeah, Zaha, just the one to watch out for. And I think if we're playing Matip, he'll be on that right-hand side. So that's something for Matip to watch out for as well. Because like I said, Zaha, he likes to cut inside. But the most important thing for me is that Liverpool do defend with a little bit more intelligence now. You know, the way Huddersfield tried to deal with Zaha, they tried to be a little bit rough and ready. They tried to get some kicks in, tried to take him down, try and use some muscle to get him off the ball. But Zaha, he's actually quite a tough fella, you know, for all the tricks, he's quite strong as well. So that doesn't really work. And I think the fact that Liverpool don't really go for that approach, and that's one of the reasons I don't want Lovren starting this game, because he likes that aggressive, rough and ready defensive approach. If we go with Matip, who's got a little bit more about him up in his noggin, hopefully we should deal with Zaha absolutely fine. So I still reckon, despite those little caveats, I reckon Liverpool will cruise to a win in this game. And here are my 3 reasons why I think they'll do that. First of all, I say it every week, and to be honest, it's because it's actually true. Mo Salah will probably be the difference for Liverpool in this game. I mean, like I said, I'm not really expecting Palace to sit back too much, because I think the fact that they're playing at home, even though they could probably do with getting a point, means they will have to come out and attack Liverpool at some point. However, when they are sitting back, when they are getting bodies in the box and just trying to block any passes or moves Liverpool try and put together, Mo Salah is the man that Liverpool have got on call for those kind of situations. I mean, we saw against Watford what he can do when he's surrounded by defenders all trying to get at him. He's just one of them players like Lionel Messi. You know, he entirely deserves those kind of comparisons in terms of playing style, that can just glue the ball to his foot and do whatever he wants to try and work some space and get a shot off. So I think Mo Salah will be hugely important for Liverpool in this game if we get into those kind of tight situations that we need someone to rescue us out of. And obviously Mo Salah, he's coming down the side where Palace have got, I think they've got Patrick Van Aanholt down that side, who loves bombing up and down the pitch. You know, even in a game like this, he's going to want to get forward. Like we saw against Man United, he got a goal in that game. So there could be a little bit of space there. And obviously on that left side of defence, you've got Mamadou Sakho as well, who as Liverpool fans, we all know, you know, he's a great guy. He is a good defender on his day, but he can tend to get his legs in a bit of a tangle when coming up against someone who's got a lot of ability on the ball. And Mo Salah is the kind of player who could just put Sakho on his arse within 5 minutes and absolutely ruin his day. And second of all, I know how people kind of talk up Crystal Palace as a bit of a bogey team for Liverpool, and always talk up the fact that Selhurst Park, you know, it's a tough stadium to go to. It's got a great atmosphere, you know, it's intimidating. It's a difficult atmosphere to play in. To be honest, Liverpool's record at Selhurst Park, not actually that bad. You know, since they came up to the Premier League, I'm pretty sure Liverpool are actually unbeaten at that Crystal Palace ground. We've won our last 4 there in all competitions, albeit a few of them jammy. You know, the Benteke dive in 15-16 kind of comes to mind as a game that Liverpool really scraped the 3 points in that. But overall, it's not actually as difficult to play at as it seems. And I think as long as a player, as long as you're mentally strong, and as long as you're capable of dealing with that atmosphere, you're able to get through it just fine. You know, Arsenal, they crumbled last season. They lost 3-0 at Selhurst Park, because there's always a question around the sort of mental attitude of those players and their ability to play when they're up against it. I think Liverpool are better than that. Liverpool are capable with dealing with those kind of hostile atmospheres. So I think we'll be fine. And I don't think that the Selhurst Park atmosphere is going to cause too many problems for us, especially with the game kicking off as Jurgen Klopp called it, breakfast time. And finally, I mentioned how Palace played against Chelsea, and I think the way that they defended in that game should absolutely play into Liverpool's hands. You know, most of the chances that Chelsea created, the ones that they created when they looked like they were going to win the game about 4 or 5-0, if they were a little bit more clinical, were on a sort of a semi-counter-attack, you know, not ones where they had like 3v2s or anything like that, not ones where they were bursting up the pitch after having to desperately defend a corner or anything like that, but moments where Crystal Palace had tried to play out a little bit. A couple of their midfielders had gone forward to try and make something happen at that end of the pitch, which is what I'm expecting to happen because, you know, it is at home. The fans will demand some attacking intent from Crystal Palace, but as soon as those midfielders get forward, Chelsea would nick the ball back, something Liverpool are brilliant at as well, just winning the ball back in those turnover kind of situations. They pile forward and expose that Palace defence, and just with a little bit of neat passing, you know, the odd one-touch pass here and there, finding your man, finding them quick, creating those chances in a short space of time, Chelsea were able to make Crystal Palace look like an absolute pub team. And that's what I mean about a cricket score. You know, if Chelsea can create those chances, Liverpool can absolutely do it as well. And with players like Mo Salah, Firmino and Mane, we've got what it takes to finish them and potentially not just win this game, but absolutely batter Crystal Palace. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. I'll be back later on, or potentially tomorrow, depending on how long it takes to edit, with the FIFA prediction show. So stay tuned for that. Until then, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well. And I'll be back shortly with the FIFA prediction show. Bye for now.